With Vancouver Canadians pitcher and part of the Northwest League champion 2023 Vancouver Canadians, Ryan Jennings. Ryan, thanks a million for joining this chat. Got a brief taste of pro ball with Dunedin in 2022, but you start back with the DJs in 2023. Good month in April. A few bumps in May, but they started to get things going again. Last two really good starts, and you get the call up to Vancouver in June. Maybe talk about first off your second season in Dunedin, how you felt things went.
Yeah, I mean, baseball is a up and down sport, so I started off really strong and was having maybe got a little comfortable there and had a couple starts where things didn't really go my way, but I mean, all credit to the staff and the guys around me always saying like keep me on track, not letting me get too far off with however things went. So um I mean the organization's been great with regardless how you do, you're doing good, doing bad, to try and keep you on a level playing field, mentally at least throughout it all. So um, they've really kind of had a lot of success with that lately. So it's been awesome so far.
I know your one start went 1 1/3 innings, didn't go great, but then you had your longest start going 7 innings, a complete game victory for yourself. Was there a mechanical adjustment you made, or was it a mental approach, or what happened?
No, it was just one of those games where it was a Sunday game and it was hot out there. I was exhausted, probably didn't get enough sleep or drink enough water. And by that second inning, I was starting to cramp and I felt like I had some pretty good stuff that day and I was just getting hit around and I think things just kind of sped up and that was kind of like the tipping point a little bit where it's like, okay, let's take a step back. Things aren't going right. And that next week I was said, all right, enough's enough. We're gonna just throw strikes. We're gonna pitch just to what we have. We're not gonna try and do too much or try and overthrow things. Regardless what happens, I'm just gonna go out there and keep that level head. If they're hitting me all over the park, so what? I know I have good stuff. Eventually it'll come through. And luckily that next week it did come through.
Okay. As I mentioned, you started in Dunedin in 2022 after you were drafted, and you had a full off season to work with all the bells and whistles at the player development complex. How did that help you going into 2023? Was there a specific way it helped you at all?
Yeah, I mean, having that facility is amazing. I mean, you show up after being at home for so long and you kind of forget how awesome it is down there. But I got to come in for a little bit of a strength camp and just having, like you said, all the bells and whistles, all the staff there. I mean, they feed you good. You got all the recovery motives you could possibly want. So it's an awesome experience to have that just at your disposal pretty much at any time. So it especially with our pitching lab and the pitching coordinators that do a lot of work with that, being able to break down mechanics and have all that at your disposal, it's awesome.
You got a few innings under your belt in 2022. What was that like when you first arrived in Dunedin? I guess you had a pro camp to work with. You were joined by all the 2022 fellow draftees. What was that whole camp experience like for you, kind of getting used to what pro ball is going to be all about?
Yeah, the draft camp we had was actually really sweet. It was just kind of show up and get your work in. We had a little competitive day at the end of camp, and I thought it was really awesome just kind of get there and get to know kind of my draft class really and get the feel for it. But then moving into the kind of the back half or back month of the season there, it was awesome. I mean, you just get back to baseball kind of. It's way different from school where school you play 3, 4 days a week with practice in between. And pro ball, it was definitely an adjustment where it's baseball game day every day. So it was awesome. I loved it.
And speaking of the draft, you get drafted in the fourth round in 2022. Did you have any idea it was going to be the Blue Jays who would take you?
I had no clue. I had seen Chris Curtis a couple times, the my draft scout, but it really wasn't kinda coming off that they were really hot on me. I'd with my agent, he made me up a spreadsheet with kinda like the teams hot and cold and when they would kinda show some interest, and the Blue Jays really didn't have a whole lot of interest, at least from his perspective, until 6th, 7th round, and I actually got a call from my agent getting the back half of the 4th round and said, "Hey, the Texas Rangers are gonna take you in their 5th round pick." And then moments later, he calls me like, "Hey, the Blue Jays are taking you right now." They kind of just snuck in there and surprised everyone, at least on my side. So yeah, it was a really cool experience. I mean, it's everyone says draft day is gonna go by fast. It's exciting. It's nerve wracking, and it was kind of like everything all at once too. So it was a cool experience.
Now you're from Texas. Were you a Rangers or Astros fan, or who did you cheer for growing up?
I grew up a Rangers fan. I kinda got my first taste of being a Rangers fan in that 2010, 2011 time when they were going to the World Series. So, it was that kinda solidified my love for baseball. I was like, this is awesome." So, yeah, growing up a Rangers fan, but I've never always in-state rivalries. I've never had any uh, trash talk or hate towards the Astros. I have a lot of friends that are Astros fans, and it's been cool to see kind of how they turn things around as well.
Did you go to a lot of Rangers games growing up?
Not really. We went to a few. My extended family's from Dallas, so when we go up there, it's about a 5 hour trip from us down here in San Antonio. But when we go up there, we kind of catch a game as we could. But I wish I could go to more games. I will say in Little League and everything, we had the San Antonio Missions. I think Double A with
Right,
the
double
Dot
A.
or Padres. So we used to go to a lot of their games down here.
Okay. So you've had I guess you've been to the newer park that the Rangers have as compared to the ballpark at Arlington, what it used to be known as for the longest time. So
Oh
uh,
yeah.
have you been to both parks at all?
Yeah, I grew up
Okay.
going to the old one, and man,
Yeah.
we did it with 4 kids. We afforded the summertime day games, so we kind of got the heat of it. But I made a game last summer before the draft to the new park, and it's beautiful.
I guess I know you're in the Blue Jays organization now, but I'm sure it's still got to be exciting for you these times. World Series, the Rangers are that close now to winning their first ever World Series, but I guess a lot of excitement for you right now. I guess you're still in Texas right now, so must be a lot
Yep.
of excitement for you.
Yeah, it is. Everyone's always saying, "Hey, you guys are doing so good." I'm like, "Hold on, let's take a step back." I'm with the Blue Jays. I do like to root for the Rangers, but if the Blue Jays were in it facing the Rangers, well, I guess they wouldn't, being AL teams. But if it was the ALCS, I'd be going Blue Jays all the way. As soon as that draft happened, I became the biggest Blue Jays fan.
Take it back to when you first began your baseball career. How did it all start for you? Take us through what led you on the path to eventually Wharton College and then Louisiana Tech.
I mean, my dad was a high school baseball athlete, never made it college, but so he was kind of my first coach from I don't even know when. I probably don't even remember when I started. That's how early I started, but just with T-ball and all the way up, I was probably 4 or 5 years old. But we kind of grew up on a little bit of land out in the hill country, and he built us 3 mounds, 2 little league mounds, and a full length mound, so I had he kinda made it easy for me to love the game, but I played all the way through high school. I started in high school. I had actually missed my freshman year tryout. I didn't make the team, um, and that's not just that was JV freshman. I didn't make any of the teams. Um, they put me on the practice squad. I was like, "Hey, like, when a job opens up, maybe we can get you in a game or something." So I was practicing but not playing. And at the time I was still playing football. And my sophomore year, I actually ended up breaking my leg in my last football game and joined the was always kind of around the baseball team. And when I finally recovered, they're like, "Yeah, we got a spot for you on the JVB team," which is generally the freshman team. And which it was kind of a little bit of a slap in the face. I was like, "Man, I know I'm better than a lot of these guys." At the time, I was just, I don't know, maybe 5'5", 5'6", and maybe 120 pounds. So I was a small kid at that point, but it was like I know fundamentally I'm a lot better than a lot of these kids. And so it was a little frustrating, but like my close friends, especially my dad and my family were like, "Hey, just, keep working. We got it's not about being the all-star all the time. Like, I know things are tough, but, like, if you really want it, you just keep showing up and playing." And, that next year, I committed it all to baseball where I was tired of football. I was like, "Baseball is more fun anyway. It's kind of my sport, my speed." And, so that following year, I actually ended up skipping our JVA team and making the varsity team, and actually fought for a starting. I was a relief pitcher and the starting shortstop halfway through the year. So that was kind of like the biggest breakthrough. My favorite story to tell is I went from not making even the JV freshman team to skipping it all and making the varsity team and making a starting spot halfway through. That following year, I was so in high school we played 2 games a week, and you got 2 starters. So I was one of the starters and the starting shortstop on the back end. So um, after that, I was actually about 2 or 3 weeks away from hanging up the cleats and just going to school and following my now wife. So then my dad was like, "Hey, let's go try some junior college. Let's go try a walk on or tryouts." So he took me around to some tryouts, and luckily Wharton County gave me a chance. Like, "Hey, we got some scholarship left. Like, here you go." I think my tryout bullpen, I was like topping 88 or 89, and uh, I guess for a small junior college, that's what they like. The guy that throws strikes and can kind of throw it a little bit. So I actually was my freshman year. I was one of the 3 starting pitchers, and then kind of a backup shortstop. But after my freshman year, we cut that and went straight to pitching.
Who would you say has really helped you out developing as a pitcher? How did it all come about that you became a pitcher and eventually started working on your pitching style, so to speak?
Have to credit it probably 90% to my dad because I mean I remember at one point, I think it was my sophomore year of high school, we were kinda doing some pitching stuff, and pitching coach comes over and is like, "Have you been doing, like, pitching lessons?" I was like, "No," like, I mean, these are the same mechanics I've had my whole life, but it was all my dad from that point, so he kinda created a very good, uh, mechanical base for me, from that point on, and I've had a couple coaches here and there. At junior college, I had a good coach, wasn't best pitching per se coach, but kind of a guy that pushed you and made you wanna be good. And then, I had a coach, Mike Silva at Louisiana Tech my first year that was by far one of my favorite coaches, just was another guy that told you how it was. I know I had a tough bullpen. He's like, "Dude, you suck today. You would not start if you pitch like this, you would not start for us on a consistent basis." And so it's just another guy that pushes you to wanna be good, who you know you can be. So credit a lot to those 3.
Well, I came across some video of you, and you had a 14 strikeout performance, I think over 7 innings against Rice. But before that, you were knocked out of the rotation. I guess you hit a couple of bumps along the way. But I guess what helped you get back on the beam that season with Louisiana Tech?
Yeah, I kinda had a little bit of a rough start, and unfortunately, throughout my career, I've kind of been a slow starter, but I kinda pick up speed as the season goes on. And there was just a lot of pressure that year because we just went to regional, was trying to fight back for it. Everyone kinda lost a lot of confidence in us because we lost a lot of our production, but, I think the coaches were pressing a lot, and I was pressing a lot, so kind of things broke through, and they were like, "Alright, take a reset. You're going to the bullpen," and I kinda took that as, "Alright, stop trying." Like, I'm just go out there. It's just once I cross those white lines, it's just throw the ball. You'd put all the work in every other day, like, that's kind of been a defining point in my career at this point because it helped me learn that I put in the work as much as I can. I feel like I'm a fairly hard worker and I do the right things, so once I cross those white lines, I can trust that I've done what I can do, and then once I go into compete mode, it's just whatever happens once the ball leaves my hand, it's out of my control. So, that's biggest thing there is that taught me how to trust the work I've done, and from then you can kinda see it how it unfolded as I went out there on the mound, it was just pitching and left the overthinking off the field in the dugout, and it, uh, sh it was successful, so
I want to talk about your pitch mix right now. I've heard various things. I'll leave it to you to explain what you do throw. I've heard fastball, I've heard curveball, I've heard 4 pitches. What is it that you are throwing right now, or is there anything that you're working on over the off season?
yeah, I throw a four-seam fastball, curveball, slider, and a changeup, and, a lot of the people say I throw a sinker or a cutter, and unfortunately I do, but not intentionally. So that's kind of one of the biggest things I've been working on this year is get a little more fastball consistency. Um, just get a when I throw in a four seam, it's four seam, and if I decide to throw a sinker, it's a sinker. And it's not kind of the two mixing together. So yeah, it's mainly those four pitches and uh, maybe develop that fifth pitch because it's kind of been a pretty good pitch whenever it's, I guess, doing what it should do, but not what I'm meaning for it to do. So it's kind of a blessing, I guess, is I'm not meaning to make it nasty, but it ends up being that way. So if I can learn to control it, it could be a weapon. But right now, that's what I'm focusing on is trying to distinguish between the fastballs.
Would you say, I guess, your best off-speed pitch, would you say it's your curveball or would you say it's your slider?
You could probably ask 10 or 15 different people and they probably give you each a different answer, but uh it kind of varies on the day. So majority of the time it seems to be the slider, especially the way the game tends to be leaning these days. The slider seems to be the better pitch of the two majority of the days.
Now, of course, there's kind of, I guess, two variations of the slider. Of course, the sweeper. I'm not sure if I've seen you pitch a little bit, but I'm not sure if a sweeper is the way you describe your slider.
No, mine's more of a gyro. I guess you just call it a gyro slider. It's more of the conventional slider where it's kind of hard but a sharp drop at the end.
I guess what is your pitching philosophy? How is it that you go and attack batters? I mean, obviously, it depends on who's batting and all that, and looking at the scouting report. But what is I guess, your battle plan when you're facing batters?
Yeah, I mean, it kinda changes, like you said, per hitter or per team, and, but mostly I like to try to live up in the zone with the fastball. I have the metrically that plays in my, favor where it's got a lot more ride, and I think it also that's a lot of the reason the curveball is really successful is whenever I'm attacking the top of the zone with the fastball, the curveball lower in the zone is a lot better and plays up. So with those 2 pairing there and then the slider that, uh, it it's a really everyone loves the pitch because it's a lot harder than, a normal slider for at least my fastball velocity. So those 2 pitches with the fastball and slider, they look very similar for a lot of the time it's thrown. So, yeah, mostly it's attack the top of the zone with the fastball, and then once you get ahead and hopefully stay ahead, it's use those other 2 pitches to find ways to get guys out.
All right, let's fast forward back to between Dunedin and Vancouver. You got the word you're going to Vancouver. How did you find out about going to the Canadians?
Yeah, think I had a game in Clearwater where I had another pretty good outing, and, I mean, I walked in, I was just finished, doing the after game duties. It was another Sunday, and we were cleaning up the dugout, and the coach just pulled me in as I walk into the locker room. They kind of were like, "Hey, so, do you wanna go to Vancouver?" I was like, I mean, not gonna say no to that, that's exactly what every guy wants to hear. So it was awesome. I mean, the guys down there were close knit and they're all celebrating with you. So it was bittersweet because I had a lot of friends on that team, but so it was like, man, I'm leaving all my good buddies down here, but it's like, well, I could get to go up to Vancouver and I get a promotion and meet a whole bunch of buddies up there too. So it was a really cool experience. Hopefully I have a what two more of those, two more, and get to stay in the big leagues at some point.
Okay, so you arrive. I guess it was in Everett. That's where I first saw you. I was actually down for that weekend in Everett. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see you pitch live. I had to leave the next day, but I was there for that doubleheader. I guess that's where the plane took you. Was I guess to Seattle eventually?
Yeah, so I landed in Vancouver on our off day on Monday,
Okay.
and then or yeah, Monday, and I think we left for Seattle on Tuesday. So I kind of got about I don't know 12 to 24 hours in Vancouver to kind of sit my suitcase down and sleep. But
Okay.
yeah, hopped on the bus with the team on Monday to head to Seattle.
Okay. And the way the rotation worked out, we did not get to see you pitch um, in Vancouver, at least not yet. We will get to that when you finally did get to pitch in Vancouver. But yeah, you arrived basically in the heat of a big divisional race. Team
Yeah.
was trying to hold off Spokane for first place in the first half of the season. Um, what was your sense of what was going on with the team when you arrived and getting ready for that big series in Everett?
Yeah, the guys up there were awesome. The coaches, all the staff was awesome. It was just kinda a mentality where you just show up and play. Like the guy was very relaxed where you can be on some teams where it's a lot of pressing, especially when things kind of come down, like you said, to that race where I think it was within just a couple games and things could go south real quick. But everyone up there just knew we were what we were capable of. So it made it easy to show up and like the guys just did what they do. It wasn't like we have to do more. They're on our tails. It was just go out there and play baseball. So it was a really cool environment to be coming into, at least seeing how the pressure was building, but the pressing, I guess you could say, by the players wasn't.
Well, you were there for two really big moments. The Garrett Spain game, the grand slam, that comeback victory, Lyle Lynn keeping the rally alive with a bloop single. Next thing you know, a huge come from behind victory in the ninth. Uh, there for the doubleheader sweep, no hitter. I mean, did you get the sense that, you know what, something special is really going on with this team, that this could be a team of
Yeah,
destiny?
it was. It was a great week to be a part of it. And unfortunately, after Debro and we finished that no hitter, I was like, "Okay, I gotta follow this up tomorrow." So it was I tried not to put too much pressure on myself. I was like, "I'm just gonna go out there and do what I do." So it was an awesome week to be a part of them because, I mean, like I said, like, they just show up and play. It wasn't, trying to do too much, and, uh, I mean, all those guys are awesome. It was just like it was just baseball kind of at its purest form.
Well, your Northwest League debut coming in Everett, what was that like pitching in that park? I've said it many a time. I think it's the Fenway Park of the Northwest League. So many funky dimensions, a very small ballpark. But how did you approach making that start in Everett that day?
Yeah, that was, it's definitely kind of a eye-opening experience going from the Florida, league down there where you're playing all the spring training sites, and then you go up there and you got a whole bunch of different stadiums, and I thought it was really cool and unique, and I mean, it's a unique stadium. I mean, you walk up, you're like you would not expect big league or I guess technically big league guys to be playing on this field, but it was actually really fun to be a part of it and kinda see the different dimensions, but, yeah, I mean, I just tried to approach it like every other day where it's you go out there and they preach throw strikes, and, that's just what I wanted to do, especially I knew I had a shorter leash that day having the traveling and getting used to the weather and all the different changes, so I had a little shorter leash, and I was like, "Man, I'm just gonna go out there and throw the ball over the plate and see what I'm going up against here," because you're taking a level up, going to a level up, so you never really know how big of a step or, small of a step it is, so it's just let's throw the stuff in the zone, see how it plays, and see what happens.
All right. Well, you return to Vancouver. We didn't get to see a pitch on the homestead, just the way the rotation schedule worked out, but you did pitch in Eugene. What was that like for you pitching at PK Park, the home of the two-time champion Eugene Emeralds at the time? But what was that experience like pitching Eugene?
Yeah, so actually that week before I ended up getting sick. That's probably the reason I missed y'all, but I think I kinda credit to going from Florida to 55 and rainy in Everett, and it just kind of poured me down. But so unfortunately, I was sick for 3 or 4 days of that series and got to travel again, on the road to, uh, Eugene, and that was another really cool experience. I mean, I grew up watching college sports, so it's on Oregon's baseball field, and I mean, that was kind of a cool thing to be a part of. Was I mean, you idolize as a kid, you idolize these big old stadiums like that, and I got to play at LSU once or twice, so being on another stadium where it's like these big, Division One players play, which now it's kind of in the past, but it was kinda cool to see a different perspective of that, and yeah, that's why I heard all the stories, the guys that were there the year before, like Eugene is like kind of the team to beat in the league a lot of the time. So it was cool to kind of get there and compete against those guys.
You mentioned LSU. I guess you probably faced K. Doty at some point then.
Yeah, oh yeah, we go back and forth a little bit. I guess my senior year, I faced him at the box at LSU, and he flew out to deep left center field on the wall. He's like, "Man, I almost hit a home run off you." I was like, "Yeah, but you didn't. It was an out." So we kind of go back and forth a little bit.
Yeah, the one thing I do know about Cade is he doesn't mind, giving it back to people. I know he and Josh Kasevich, they
Oh,
had
yeah.
they had their conversations when they faced each other during the regionals and all that, so, okay, that's interesting that, yeah, you did run into Cade Doughty at some point. Okay, so you pitch in Eugene. After that, we did not hear from you until September. I guess I had heard injury, I guess it was. What happened?
Yeah, so I think I really think what happened was I had those 3 days off of being sick the week before Eugene, and I kinda had 4 days to ramp up to throw in a game, and I think my body just kinda reacted in a bad way to it. It wasn't anything serious. I think I had some, compression on my nerve that was causing some tightness, and it went away in 4 or 5 days, which it typically does. I throw the day after, it's tight, and then I'm ready to go by the weekend. But they wanted to be cautious with it just in case it was getting down to the end of the season, so I went back after the All-Star break. I had about 2 weeks off of resting and felt healthy at that point, but they wanted to be cautious with it, so I went down to Florida for a little rehab and, spent, I think, about 8 weeks there. Um, but, I mean, like you said earlier, you get to utilize everything there. I mean, I had 3 or 4 PTs kinda just always working on me. The weight room staff was awesome. I mean, food every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner pretty much, so couldn't complain too much other than the fact I wasn't with the guys up in Vancouver. But, I mean, I kept up with them the whole way. I know they had a couple rough stints there. I think guys were getting injured and sick. They were moving guys up and down, so it was kind of a weird dynamic there, but they once I got back up there, it was kinda just, like, picked up where we left off. So,
So it was a shoulder issue then, I guess it was a nerve issue, that was
it
the problem?
was, right elbow.
Oh, right elbow, okay,
Yeah.
so okay, alright, and okay, so I guess you must've been relieved that at least you didn't need, like, Tommy John surgery or something like that because
Yeah.
that's a pitcher's worst nightmare, obviously.
Yeah, I kinda was dealing with it for the past few years. It just kinda comes and goes. Um, but I mean, it's just kinda something I add into my prep work is I gotta be wary of it. It's nothing too serious. It was just kinda a little setback, but everything was alright.
So the next time we see you pitch is in Tri-City, and, basically, you're more or less, like, coming in cold. I know you're down in Dunedin trying to, rehab and get ready, but, I mean, I guess maybe you had simulated games or anything like that, or I guess how did you prepare getting ready for that final start in Tri-City during the regular season?
Yeah, they did a really good job down in rehab, kind of building you up, taking the time to make sure you're healthy and good to go. So I had a handful of bullpens, probably 5 or 6 bullpens at that point. I'd had, I think, 2 live outings where it was just kind of, hitter and catcher, pitcher, and then one where it was kind of a sim game a little bit where we did have a couple coaches playing positions, but, kind of mimic it as much as possible. But yeah, going out into that game, I definitely had the heart racing a little bit. My first batter, I think I went 3-0. I was like, okay, let me step back, let me take a breath. Like I know I'm in a game, but it was just exciting to be back out there. I've kind of been itching to get back out there for pretty much 8 weeks once I went to rehab.
Playoffs began, getting ready for the Everett Aqua Sox. The guys managed to gain a split. Game 3, a real nail biter, probably the most nerve-wracking game I think I've ever witnessed live, but a game that the Canadians pulled out 1-0. When did you learn you were gonna get the start for game 4?
So we knew I was gonna. I think I threw on a Saturday, so that was kind of my schedule is every Saturday, and I knew if we were making the playoffs, which we knew at that point we were doing, I was gonna pitch on Saturday. Um, so I kind of knew going into it, I'd most likely pitch that week, and then once our I guess the regular season ended, they kind of let us know how it was gonna play out, and it was awesome.
So, first inning, wow, what a way to start. You finally get to pitch at Nat Bailey Stadium, strike out the side, not just any 3 batters, only the Mariners' top 3 prospects. I know you probably would have faced Harry Ford, but, you faced Gabriel Gonzalez, you faced Cole Young. Um, I mean, what a way to start that first inning. What do you remember about it, striking out the side?
Man, I mean, that stadium is I get to experience it from the bullpen a little bit is sitting out there with the guys and seeing them go out and play while I was resting from the injury, but getting on the mound while there's 6,500 people there rooting you on, I mean, that probably helped me the most is it's one thing to pitch in an environment where people show up and are rooting against you. It's another thing to have the whole city really behind you. And facing those three hitters, man, I couldn't. No offense to any of those guys, it wasn't. I like to try and go out there and not think about who I'm facing because as soon as I say this number one prospects in the mount or in the box, I got to start pressing a little bit. I try to keep that out of my mind as much as possible. So, yeah, that's probably the first time I heard that they were the top 3 prospects, which kinda makes me feel pretty good about myself now, but, uh, I mean, all credit to those guys because I mean, they got they're at the same level we are, and, they've gotten the recognition they deserve, so, I mean, it's awesome to hear that's how it turned out for me is because I mean, I didn't know that until you said that, so that's pretty cool.
You threw 51 pitches. Did you know, I guess coming in, you were on a pitch count? Was it 50, I guess, was that the magic number? He said, or just try and get as many outs as you can? What was the game plan?
Well, yeah, so during rehab, my max was 2 innings. You get 2 innings, and, that was the plan was to go 2 innings, for my last 2 starts, and I kinda after my first outing in Tri-City, I was like, "Come on, like, let's see what we can do, let me get a 3rd inning." Like,
Mm.
I borderline begged him to let me have a 3rd inning. I told him, "I feel good, I feel healthy, like, as long as I keep the pitch count reasonable, like, let me go 3." And so they nodded their head, and they said 3 innings. Obviously, I think it was a 60 or 65 pitch limit, but I snuck underneath that, so I was really happy that they let me do that.
And eventually the team really pours it on. Anders Tolhurst, Eric Pardino, Justin Kelly finish it off. What was it like after Justin Kelly threw that final pitch, lining out and Blake Rambush lining out to Josh Kasevich? Take us through where you were running from the field. Take us through what that experience was like getting to join the dog pile.
Yeah, I was actually sitting there talking to Anders. I mean, once you got 2 outs, we were kinda all on the edge of our seats there and leaning over the netting, but, I mean, as you said, I was getting chills thinking about it. I mean, regardless what level you're at, winning a championship's a championship, and I mean, you can't put it into words. But, I mean, once that happened, we were actually all debating, it's like, "Are we gonna jump over this fence, or are we, like, going out the edges?" And as soon as it happened, we're like, "Screw it, we're going over it. We're not wasting any time to get out there and celebrate." So, I mean, it was awesome. Uh, couldn't wish it for a better group of guys, especially the guys that were there all year grinding it out. I mean, I kinda felt like I kinda cheated the system a little bit. I skipped almost half the season, snuck in for a championship, but it was awesome to get to be a part of it.
I guess would you say that was your best baseball moment ever? Can anything top that other than eventually getting to the big leagues? But for you, is that was that the pinnacle right now?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty darn close. We had my senior year, we won our conference championship tournament on a walk off. So that one may rival it a little bit, just considering it was a walk off and it was kind of the senior season to send us to regional. So I mean, they're close. I mean, championships are championships. I mean, you could probably ask most big leaguers or athletes, like no championship really beats another other than the fact that maybe the team you're on or the situation that caused it. But I mean, championships are kind of the peak of where you want to be at.
Final question I want to ask: do you have a favorite? Did you have a favorite major leaguer growing up, pitcher or player?
So growing up, my dad was old fashioned. I always loved Nolan. I always had a picture of Nolan Ryan in my bedroom. But growing up a Rangers fan, I'd kind of idolize the guys that were on that 2010, 11, because those are guys I grew up around. As I kind of grew up a little bit, uh, kind of realized I gotta let me find someone that is like me that I can kind of manipulate my game, my mechanics to kind of do that. So really got into Trevor Bauer there for a while. He was really good about kind of promoting the game and growing the game on his YouTube channels and stuff like that. So I kind of learned a lot of mechanical information through him and kind of watching him compete and everything. Especially, I mean, Cy Young Award winner. Like, why would you not watch a guy like that? And um, now it's kind of transitioned into watching Spencer Strider, a guy that's similar height and build, who has a lot of success at the big league level. Um, obviously, there's things he does a lot better than I do, but having someone that, I mean, if we stood next to each other and He's probably got bigger legs than me, but, we're very similar, the way we are built and really I think the way we pitch, mechanically. So I try to use him as much as possible to kind of guide where I wanna go go because a guy that's on 96 to 100 and striking out the house every time he goes out and faces the best players in the world is not too bad of a guy to use as a guide, so
Nice. Ryan, thanks a million for this. I've taken up quite a lot of your time already. So I just want to say thank you so much. Congratulations on the 2023 season and, helping the Seas win a championship. And certainly no Seas fan's going to forget what you did, your big contribution to it with the 3 shutout innings. So thanks again and all the best to you, sir.
thank you, I appreciate you having me on, it was a blast.